Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. If you are good friends with someone and you thought they were going to be here and they're not here, it is a Sunday night at 7 o'clock. I know that I just unloaded the dishwasher and threw around some things in the kitchen really quick because it's kind of an awkward time, but I thought this might have been the best time for us to get together. So I'm just going to walk us through here everything that we need to know about student teaching. With that being said, if at any point during all of my slides you have a question, just speak up. My computer looks a little funny. It's not like the waffle, it's a long row. So if you're raising your hand, or I might not see it, so just go ahead and shout out. There's only 10 of us in here. And then at the end, if you have any questions, you can also let me know. Andrew, you are, hi, you're student teaching in the spring, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I just thought I'd drop in.
Welcome. I'll take anyone that wants to know more. Again, yeah, so if anyone knows like Molly's cell phone number, if you want to give her a text, I emailed her. I think Chelsea said she couldn't make it. I don't remember. And maybe Anthony. But then besides that, that's all of us. Okay, so I'm going to get started here. This is also being recorded if you want to watch it again, or so we can share it with the people that are missing. But we are, there we go. Can everyone see the screen change for y'all? Yes, it did. Okay, good. Thank you. Whoever that was, I appreciate. Oh, there we go. So we're gonna review some things. I know that for you all, Brandolyn was the person that you came in with, and then about halfway through your program, I showed up. And so I made a little bit of changes just to make it go smoother. My perception of it going smoother. And so I'm going to go over some things that maybe you have used in the past, maybe you haven't, with the goal that this is the easiest semester that it can be. Mainly because I would say the large majority, all but a few, are under option 6 in this group, which means that you have a lot going on. The pressure's on because it's the last semester. You're about to graduate. As someone mentioned, we had a plague last year, and so a lot of people are recovering from that. And academically with kids coming in. So I just want to make sure that I prepare you the best way I possibly can, so you know what to expect as the semester rolls through, because in like 15 short weeks, you guys are going to be finished, which is kind of crazy. And you will be ready to go. But I have a lot to make sure that you accomplish first. So a lot of you are really familiar with this, but this is something I'm going to show each group for orientations this year, just to make sure that we completely get it. So you have the school side, and you also have NKU side. On the school side, you'll have a building mentor if you're option 6. Most of you had the same building mentor this whole entire time. If you are option 6, you've had the same building mentor the whole time. If for some reason you are option 6 and you do not know who your building mentor is, your principal is the one that assigns your building mentor. Most likely you've got an email from me saying, hello, who's your building mentor? Because this is something that we have to put on your paperwork to file with the state of Kentucky for your option 6 licensure. So you have that. Our non-option 6 folks, it's called a PK12CE. And if they're a building mentor or a PK12CE, this person is going to be observing you teaching a couple times this year. They're going to interact with you on your visits, give you some pointers. They're going to complete evaluations on Folio Tech on you. From the NKU side, you have two different people serving you. And again, this has been kind of the family tree that you've seen through your whole time with us. Your UCE is your University Clinical Evaluator. If you don't know who that is yet, go ahead and drop me an email, but I think I've sent everyone who their UCEs are. So if you're student teaching and you don't know who your UCE is for this semester, go ahead and email me. Do not assume it's just the person from last year, because as we have anticipated that COVID would be over, we really pushed that our UCEs would be in person more. Now with things kind of flaring up again, we are, I'm letting each UCE choose based on their own family demographics, based on who they're observing and what school it is, if it will be digital or not for their observations. So that is two things just to kind of be aware of. The first is that your UCE might have changed, although we really tried to keep it the same. Your UCEs really like to be with you and watch you go through the whole entire program. And then don't expect for it all to be digital observations or all to be in-person observations. Your UCE will decide for each observation. Now, that is to say that your schools let our UCEs in. Depending on how things go as the school year starts, the school district may say no one additional gets to come in. At that point, then we just do have to do digital observations like we did last year. So your UCE is going to observe you teaching, interact with you, complete evaluations on Foliotech, provide feedback on lessons. And this is really important, and I don't know if you guys knew this, they're the ones that actually say what your final grade is. It's kind of confusing because the course instructor is the one that awards the grade, but your UCE is the one we fill out a very large spreadsheet, and it says this person's final grade is a pass or a fail. So you pleasing that UCE is really important, making sure you're getting back to them, make sure you're having good communication with them. And then you have your course instructor for student teaching for fall 1 and fall 2. That is going to be myself. I'm going to run the course, but again, I talk back and forth with those UCEs a lot and check in to see how you're doing, if we are improving on things that we need to improve on, if you are taking that feedback from them, and if you're getting your things in on time. So those are the major players in your next 15 weeks or so. When we look at both the terms, I've broken down both the terms and everything that needs to be done. This is just a larger view, but then I am going to kind of zoom in and show you what needs to be done on a weekly basis. So we can see in term 1, so fall 1, you're going to have a total of 3 observations. 2 of those observations are going to come from your UCE, and 1 of those is going to come from your building mentor or your PK-12CE. Most of the time, and it doesn't have to be all the time, but most of the time, your last observation or your second observation that your UCE does will be the same observation that your building mentor or your PK-12CE does. And the reason for that is it's really nice for us to see, and as a past educator, it was really nice when 2 people scored or gave their opinions on my teaching and to see if they aligned. So that is something to keep in mind. You're going to be getting observed just a total of 2 times. The first time by just the UCE and the second time by your building mentor or your PK-12CE and your UCE. For that second one, it's important to kind of get it scheduled really early, because you are at that point trying to find a time that's good for 2 working professionals besides yourself. And so sometimes scheduling those is a little bit more difficult. In your First term, you're going to do a teacher work sample. That's a really big assignment. That's going to take up, I think, week 5 and week 6, and we'll get into it a little bit more. And that second lesson observation that we are talking about happens during this week teacher work sample assignment. And then there's other required forms that you're used to, disposition forms, those type of things. In term 2, you're going to have 3 observations again, 2 from the UCE, 1 from your building mentor or your PK-12 CE, kind of fashioned the same way. You're going to update your professional growth plan. You are going to update your resume and your philosophy of education, and again, do those other forms. Do we have any questions so far? If so, take yourself off mute and like holler so I can hear you. Okay. So this is checklists that I made, I think over the course of last year to help us just kind of stay organized on everything that we need to do week by week. This is all the assignments that you have. And you, if I were you, I would print this off of Canvas. This is on our MAT Canvas page, and it's under modules. I would print this off and just highlight as you get everything done. So the first week, I want you to make contact with your UCEs. Make sure you say hi, when works well for you for lessons, but go ahead and get those lessons scheduled early. By the end of week 2, you should have both lessons scheduled, especially because if you look at week 3, that's your first observation from your UCE, and it happens fairly quick, especially because there are a lot of observations for all the different hours of 693, hour 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that happen in week 3. So our UCEs have a really busy week. And so you want to make sure that you kind of get first dibs on their calendar. So amongst some other things, your first observation is in week 3. And then you can see in week 5 is that week that you have the UCE and your PK-12 CE do the same observation. And again, you can see it's based on the teacher work sample, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. Your teacher work sample is due in week 6. You can see that it is bolded there. And then something that we want to make sure that you are doing is that you are uploading your time log sheet before Thursday at 5 p.m. on week 7. What that does is if it didn't upload correctly, or if something happened, or your internet goes out, you have on Friday for an emergency situation. Because technically, if we don't have everything we need by end of workday on Friday of week 7, it's a fail. Now, in the past, we really have. I've worked with a couple people when something hasn't worked out. In student teaching, it's a little bit different, especially that second term, because they expect for us to say who's walking, who's graduating at that point. So things get a little bit more serious in your last classes of field experience. You can see this kind of happens again for checklist for the second term. Again, you're gonna make your contact with UCE. It's not gonna be, hi, I hope you had a good summer, but hi, can we get these observations on the calendar? And you are going to get observed again in week 3, again, observed by both of your people in week 5, and then your time logs are uploaded 5 p.m. Thursday. Any questions just on that checklist? Now, there's a lot of stuff there, and we're going to kind of go through it. And quite honestly, a lot of the stuff you've already seen. Professional disposition survey, you've already done that a couple times. When you see like the signatures that you have to do, or lesson reflections, those type of things, you've done them in the past, and so it looks familiar to you. You can see right here, this is just a screenshot of the Folio Tech pages for 695, 97, 96, and 98. You'll see on Canvas and on Folio Tech, all of those course numbers are shoved together. And that's because for 695 and 697 is for one group of students. 696 and 698 is for another group of students. And it depends on if you're option 6 or not. Quite honestly, for our Canvas course and for Folio Tech, everyone does exactly the same thing. So it doesn't really matter which one of the classes that you are logged into, which ones that you have registered for. And you can see on Folio Tech and on Canvas, we put it all together. And so I know that when I looked back on here, if I looked back where it said, let's see, lesson reflection, it's in source of evidence and artifacts. When I go over here, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, source of evidence, artifacts, and that is where, in that area is where you're going to be uploading your stuff. Okay, so this just shows everything that needs to be done. Don't get confused with those 4 call numbers. They're all the same, and you're going to work from that big group for the whole entire semester. Something that has changed on Folio Tech is some people you might hear someone call it a CPR, and that's your cumulative progress report. The people that are coming in into the program this semester, they are going to start filling this out. Bad news is that I need for you guys to backlog and fill this out. So when you go into your Folio Tech account, at the very top is going to be something called your cumulative progress report. And you can see there that I circled it in red. You're going to click on that. And when you click on that, the thing to the right is going to open up. And you can see our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It wants you to type in how many field experience hours that you had. Now you might be thinking, that was a really long time ago. I have no idea. When you have filled out your end of the term reflection paper, you should have it written in there. We know that you should have at least had 40 hours for each one of the hours, so it equals your 200 field experience hours before student teaching. But what you're going to do is you're going to go in there, you're going to type in and put how many hours you had. If you don't remember, just put 40, because you know you at least had that many or you wouldn't have been able to pass. And then the semester year. At what point did you do hour 1? At what point did you do hour 2? Again, you can look back on your semester reflection. You can also look back on your curriculum contract because it'll be listed on there. And then at the top, all the way to the right, you need to say how many hours have you logged for the entire semester. So the rest of these are a little bit different because it's broken down by hour, but this is for term 1 and term 2, cumulatively, how many hours do you have logged in there? And then you're going to drop the select down box and you're going to hit fall of 2021. Okay. When you look down a little bit further, you are just going to mark the things again by looking at your semester reflection. You're just going to mark the things that that you completed in hour 1, that you completed in hour 2. And again, just by looking back through there, you have the ability to mark them. Any questions on this?
One quick question about the time log this semester.
Yeah.
So for those of us who are option 6 and like we've already done the semester reflection and everything, do we just need to essentially, since we're going to be doing everything for full-on teaching, like do we just need to just record enough hours on the time log to say we hit 40 hours for student teaching, or do we need to record specific things on the time log this time around since we're not trying to prove we hit specific standards for the semester reflection anymore?
What I would really do is I would do however many hours roughly you are there, count how many days was in a semester and just multiply. It's going to be a huge number, but it will make sense in our data collection because we'll know that you're option 6. This is kind of different also because this wants hours, but on our time log, I believe it's 35 days. that you have to have at least for fall 1 and fall 2. So they're a little bit different. And the reason for that is because in undergrad, they have to get hours, but you guys, you work more off of days. Tim, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So this is just a continuation down from those, from that form. You've seen them before. Have you worked with populations from 2 or more races or ethnicities, English language learners, socioeconomic diversity, and students with disabilities? So you can go ahead and pick and choose by looking off of your past paperwork. But then in student teaching, you need to be able to say that you've worked with all of these folks. For most of us, especially those option 6 folks, this is going to be really, really easy. But I just want you to have these 4 diverse experience subgroups in your head. If for some reason you are working in a school that you never see anybody with disabilities, for some reason, all of the high school classes or middle school classes that you're working with, no one has an IEP. If for some reason you never deal with any ELL folks. So that is something just to be mindful of. If for some reason you don't hit one of these categories, what we need to do is during a certain period or a certain time in the day, you need to hop to another class so you do have experiences with those folks. It's not so much of a crazy thing as long as we know it at the beginning of the semester rather than halfway through or when you only have about 2 weeks left. This is the last thing on this CPR, this cumulative progress report. Again, you have been filling them out the whole entire time with us, but for student teaching, you need to hit all 10. Those 10 standards, when you look into our Canvas site, they will be explained a little bit more if you have forgotten what exactly counts for application of content or leadership and collaboration. But we just want to be mindful and really look to make sure that we are getting those and that we do understand them. I believe, oh, it's not going to bring me all the way there. Can you guys?
A quick question about those 10 you just said. Are you saying that we need to hit all those 10 again and during student teaching? Or
Yes, in both combination of term 1 and term 2. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then please make sure you're saving and closing at the very end. So all of it is logged there. Okay, so lesson plans and lesson reflections. You are probably very used to these lesson plans. You have been scaffolded, worked your way up from hour 1 to this point. And so your lesson plans are pretty much the same. Please make sure that on these lesson plans, you are really filling out. We are looking for that you have given thought in these lesson plans. Your lesson plans really should not look like hour 5 because you're not an hour 5 candidate, which means that if I'm looking at lesson procedures and then the launch, more than just a couple words, we want to know, have you really thought about this lesson? This is where you show us, if this was a perfect lesson, exactly what it would look like. Now, it might not actually happen in the real classroom because things typically don't go as perfectly planned like you have set up, but we want to see best case scenario that you have thought about all of these things in depth. So please make sure that you are writing in complete sentences. I know that sounds funny to say that, but there's reasons behind me saying that. Please make sure you're writing in complete sentences and really in-depth thoughts, showing us that you should be in student teaching. Sarah, if you want to jump in at any moment, I completely understand. Please feel free to cut me off if you have anything to add. I know that Sarah reads a lot of these lesson plans.
Yeah, and I think that's just something to keep in mind, that the few of us that do this, we do read a lot, and then we really want to see them in advance. And I know that's going to be different for each UC, but it's going to be a few days. And we've all been teachers. We know it's hard that whatever happens on Tuesday impacts what happens on Wednesday and Thursday. That doesn't change that I need to see it on Tuesday so that I can digest it. I can offer feedback. And then you can rework or, confirm whatever your plan was. That's okay if there are small changes come observation day, but I don't want someone to be stressed and like putting it off and then not giving us your best in the written lesson plan, if that makes sense.
I thought someone else was going to chime in. And through the as your course instructor, you will send your lesson plans to me, and then I will give you some feedback, and then you will send them to your UCE and they will give you some feedback. So you actually need to be writing your lesson plans pretty well in advance. And again, we know if for some reason you go to teach your lesson plan and you covered a third of it the day before, or it doesn't start until, a certain ways down where you were giving instruction, that's okay. As long as we can see that the major work has been put into really thinking about how am I going to make this a great lesson. So really take a lot of time on that. I know that myself and all the UCEs take a long time reading these, and it's important. And we want to make sure that we're giving you the best feedback possible. And so if our feedback is simply, can you expand? It doesn't look like you really spent that much time on these lesson plans. That's not getting the best out of us that you possibly could. So really take your time on those and make sure you get them to us well in advance so we can read them, think about them, and give you the best guidance that we can. You'll see that there is a change on the post-observation reflection form. And there's a question number 4 now, and it asks, what changes would you make if you were to teach this lesson again to a new group? That is not it. Where is it? I don't think it got changed on yours. The new post-observation reflection, and I am going to write this down. The very last question asks, what changes were you suggested to make, and what changes did you actually make? Because at the end of the day, I could suggest something, your UCE could suggest something, and at the end of the day, you could think, that's not really what I want to do. I don't want to make those changes. I like it the way it is. And that's okay, but that will be a time, and you will be able to, and you will need to write that on your post-observation reflection form. I was told I should change this, this, and this. I did so because, or I chose not to do that because. But that just shows that you are really looking at the comments that we're making and really reflecting if those are the comments that you want to keep, if you do want to make the changes. It also does help us for when I go back and I look at the very end, your post-observation reflection form, I can see, oh, your UCE told you to do this over the past couple of lessons, and you've chosen not to do any of them, or you've chosen to make all of the changes. Again, you don't have to make all the changes, but we do want to see that you are reflecting and considering the changes that we were suggesting. Does anybody have any questions on lesson plans and lesson reflections? Okay. Let's keep on going. So for your observations, this timeline is a lot like what's been done in the past, but I want to go over it again because I don't want us to get behind and to get stressed. So your lesson plan is going to be emailed to either your PK-12 CE or UCE, whoever's observing you, or both, within 48 hours before your observed lesson for feedback. So that's at least 2 days. Now, if your UCE says they want more time to read them, then you need to follow what your UCE requests. Feedback is taken and changes are made in the lesson plan and submitted onto the Foliotech under the source of evidence artifact. So you're going to upload that lesson plan to Foliotech. You're going to teach your lesson. You're going to have a great time. You're going to show us that you really are enjoying yourself in the classroom. And then the person that observed you is going to complete that lesson evaluation form that you have seen several different times that comes off of Foliotech. And they are going to do that before your post-conference. And they're going to use that as a tool to speak off of. Okay, and so they are going to use that kind of as a discussion tool. You're going to meet with the person that observed you for a post-conference, and you're going to discuss your performance for at least 48 hours after, no more than 48 hours after the lesson was taught. For some of us, it might be a recording of the lesson because we don't know really how COVID is going to, what COVID's going to hand us this next year. And so it might be 48 hours after the time that you got it emailed or Dropboxed to your UCE. So those timelines are a little bit loose, as long as you are really getting the things into your UCE by the time that they want them. And then from your discussion in your post-conference, you're then going to complete that lesson reflection. So that reflection, you're really going to be reflecting off of the lesson and the post-conference. And you're going to pop that up onto Foliotech about 72 hours after your observations. If I were you, I am still a paper planner person. You can see that here. I would, in my planner, say, okay, this is the day that I am teaching. So this is the day I need to get my lesson plan submitted. And then I need to schedule my post-conference and then type up my lesson reflection and put that in your planner. So not any of those things kind of get forgotten about. Do y'all have any questions about this timeline for observations? Okay. So our hour logs, I would like for you, I don't know if you've used them before, but I would like for you to use a digital time log. I will share this with you on our Canvas course page, but I would like for you to put it in digitally, and I would like for you to use this Google Doc to do so. The reason being is a lot of times we have folks that they counted wrong and it didn't add up correctly. So this will actually count up your total time for you very easily. For my option 6 folks, it becomes really easy if you just go in and you copy and paste Monday through Friday, over and over and over again, and it will add it up for you fairly quickly. Your time log must add up to 35 days, excuse me, for term 1 and term 2. And it has to be signed by either your PK-12 CE or your building mentor. For the building mentor, that's the option 6 folks. With that being said, and knowing that your time logs are due Thursday by 5 p.m. of week 7, you need to make sure that you have this planned and have it ready to go. Maybe Thursday of week 7, you have it all filled out, you print it, you walk it to your building mentor or your PK-12 CE and say, sign here. If you wait for them to come to you, it's not really their responsibility, and it might not get uploaded in a timely manner that we need for it to be done. Because once you have printed off your time log, they've signed it, you're going to scan it and upload it back onto Foliotech. But with all of those printing, signing, and uploading it back, takes a little bit more time than if it was just a paper copy. So you can see here that there are 2 places for you to submit your time logs. Term 1's on the top and term 2 is on the bottom. But again, total of 35 days for term 1 and term 2. And also make sure that it is signed by the person in the building that is your mentor. Any questions on those hour logs?
So do we need to wait until next week to start counting hours?
I'm okay with you starting right now if you want to.
Okay,
Or this week, yeah.
And sorry, when we say counting days, are we counting like saying like every 24 hours we enter in, or every 8-hour workday?
Every 8-hour workday.
Right.
Mhm,
Just to clarify, you submitted twice, correct?
mhm. Yep, once for term 1 and once for term 2. But then on your cumulative progress report on Folio Tech, that's when you're going to add up all those hours. But if you have done, and on this Google Doc, it will add up those hours for you. So you'll just add term 1 and term 2 hours together and put that up on your cumulative progress report.
I just have a quick question.
Mhm.
It says time must add up to 35 log days. So is that 35 in the first half and then 35 in the second half, or 35 for the entire?
35 for term 1 and then 35 for term 2.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Okay. And again, I know most of you are option 6, so you are hitting those hours hard already. Okay. Okay. So we're just gonna dip our toe into this teacher work sample. I will explain it in much more detail in week 3. I will post a pretty decent sized video explaining it. But if you have a personality like me, if there's a big project coming up that starts in about 3 weeks, I want to know about it now so I can start thinking about it. So I just want to review it just a little bit. So for your teacher work sample, what it is a 5-day lesson that you're going to teach. And it even says 5-day lesson progression because it's not going to be a unit, because units don't happen in 5 days. It's not going to be you pre-assess on day 1 and you have your final assessment on day 5. So just some snippet of a unit that's a 5-day lesson progression. It's one that you have designed. Now, it says that if you are using curriculum, if you are using something that your mentor has said to use, that also counts because that's the real world. You are then going to determine your lesson progression, and that's a form that you're going to fill out that shows here are the standards we're going to hit. Here's our overall unit goal. And then you are going to develop a pre and post assessment. Now, this is just a pre-assessment of what happens on that first day and a post assessment of what happens on the last day. It's not, and it can be very small. Don't think something very large. Think of something that you can hand them, like a bell ringer or an entrance slip when they come in on day 5, no instruction given, and an exit slip on the end of day 5, just so you can compare what change they have had over those 5 days. Okay, it's going to even be the same assessment that you give to them for the pre and post assessment. You are then going to use a lesson progression map template, and I'll give that to you and walk you through it to show us what your lesson plan progression looks like. Someone said something. Did someone have a question? Okay. And then you are going to, just on one of those lessons, you're going to complete that detailed lesson plan form. And that one lesson that you write a really long lesson plan form on, which is your normal one, that's the one that your UCE and your building mentor observes you for. Okay, so that second observation by your UCE is the first observation by your building mentor, and also rolls into this assignment also. You're going to have a post observation reflection form like you would from any other observation. And then you are going to do some comparisons about how they pre-tested and how they post-tested. So think about, look at week 3 on your curriculum, see what you will be doing in roughly September 6th week or September 13th week. Around that time is where you are going to, no, I'm sorry. It's going to be posted in week 3, but your, I'm going to flip back a lot. I don't want you guys to get sick here. You might want to close your eyes. I want to see where exactly this is. It's in term 1. Your teacher work sample is due on week 6. And okay, so think about what you're going to be doing in your classroom September 20th that week or September 27th, because that is where your teacher work sample will come from, along with your second observation from your UCE and your first from your building mentor. Okay, I know that was just a little bit, but do you guys kind of understand, thinking ahead, what you need to choose for that? Okay, I'll take it. You guys are doing
I had a
good.
question.
Yes.
So when you listed the 2 different weeks that it might be, like September 20th or September 27th,
Uh-huh.
is that so that we can pick a week where we're not like finishing a unit and then starting another one?
Yeah, and also just knowing that weeks in school are crazy. You might be finishing a week, it might be the end of the semester, you might have a pep rally. Your classroom might be shut down for COVID. There is some flexibility and movement in all of these things. And especially if you can say during this first week of school, especially if you can plan with your UCE saying, okay, I know that September 20th week is not going to work. Is it okay if we do my second observation the week of September 27th? That shows that you really know what's going on and that you're organized. And so I'm okay with it being either one of those weeks. I just know that the whole thing is due at the end of week 6, which would be October 1st, around there, that weekend.
Okay. And so that would be like one important consideration though, is to like try to pick a week where we're not having a big like end of unit test.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Hannah. Yeah, you don't want for the lesson that you get observed on being a unit test. I mean, I guess if it, yeah, I would avoid those unit tests, because if your pre-assessment and your post-assessment has to be the same, and so it would have to be, you would need to teach content on between day 1 and day 5. And sometimes on those big unit tests at the end there's some review. So yeah, I would try to steer away from those. That's a good thought. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions?
Can you real quick flip back to like the timeline schedule?
Yeah.
Just as I'm looking at my calendar, figuring out, because I know last year a couple times I had like where observation week ended up being like we were out of school for 3 days or
Yes.
whatever, and so I just was trying to put.
Yeah, and all of this is on Canvas for you all also.
Okay, is that class? Is it in like the class for this, or is it just in the general MAT thing?
It's going to be in both.
Okay.
So it's on the MAT Canvas, and then it's also going to be in the student teaching.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because ideally, I'd want you to print this out and then try to organize your life from that. Yeah. Okay, I am flying. Here we go. Okay, so for your final reflection, This happens in term 2 during your very last week. So this is like you're graduating in a week and a half, which is pretty exciting. You are going to describe your professional growth, answer those questions. When you answer these questions, we are really looking for at least a paragraph or so for each question. So how have you changed as a result of your field experiences? We really want to know how you've changed, what things have affected you positively or negatively. So give us some good information. It then goes into some more questions, but it is very similar to the 693, the ones that you have been doing, but that is something to expect during your last week in student teaching. So that is kind of a rundown of term 1 and term 2. My next slide talks to us about our graduation checklist. Is there any questions about student teaching itself?
So one question, I don't know if this is something that we do through you guys or not, but it's is it before we get like final certification? I think this might be separate from our actual graduation, but is there like, I believe there's supposed to be like a separate praxis test we have to take, like.
Yep. And so that is on your graduation checklist. We're going to be talking about that. You read my mind, Timothy. Any other things besides that? Because we're definitely going to talk about that next.
Okay, I'll shut up.
Okay. Okay, so right now, a good amount of you are licensed through option 6, but as soon as you are finished with the program, you will no longer be option 6 licensed. You will need your full teaching license. To get that, you are going to pair 2 things together. One is your diploma from us, you completing our program. That's one thing that you need. The second thing that you need is your PLT. Okay, that PLT is your exit praxis. Do you understand? Do you understand pedagogy? Do you understand the things that were taught in this program? It really does explain a lot about the test if you look how it's broken up, because you only have 2 options. You have, and actually a third option needs to be put on there, but I don't have anyone in this group that's world languages. But so everyone in this group will be able to choose a PLT grades 5 through 9 for my middle school folks, or a PLT grades 7 through 12 for my high school folks. So you can see there, oh, well, it's not going to be over my content, what I specialize in. It's going to be over how do I teach middle school, or how do I teach high school, because all the high school folks are taking one and all the middle school folks are taking the other. So with a passing score of 160 and your diploma, you will put those together, and then you will apply for your full licensure. If you have questions at that point, Leslie is still here and she will help you with all of those things. But what we want to think about is, let's take those tests early in the semester. You have had your experiences. You have had 200 hours of field experience to this point. My option 6 folks has had even more. And you've taken all of your pedagogy classes. So I highly encourage you, look at your schedule, look to see when you have a break in this semester. When can you take your PLT early on in the semester? I have yet to hear of anyone that didn't pass their PLT the first time. But just in case it's a crazy day where the test gets canceled, you want to have that PLT passed for when you get your diploma, so then you can turn around and get your full license after you graduate in the end of December. Okay, so that is your PLT test. I'm going to go back up to the top left and I'm going to look at that. The first thing is apply for graduation. you would be fall graduation. Is that right? Yes, you would be fall graduation. So you are kind of in that middle mark. If you haven't graduated yet for fall graduation, go ahead and do that. If you plan to walk or not, you still have to apply for graduation. So make sure that you do that. Some crazy thing, you have to be enrolled in the term you wish to graduate. You all are. I've already looked in all of your accounts and you all have signed up for classes, the classes that you need, so you're good to go. The next thing to be thinking about, take your PLT. And then there are all of the instructions about what to do with applications and all of that. If you have questions on that portion, realistically, if you have questions on anything about this graduation checklist, there are primarily Leslie Webster questions. She is the one that does your checklist. She does your evaluations to make sure that you're ready to go. I chime in sometimes, but overall, she is the one that works with you when you jump into the program and then when you exit the program. And then there are some reminders there. This whole graduation checklist is also on the NKU Canvas or the MAT Canvas page. There is a part for, I think the very top in modules, the very top one is like for 693 folks, and there's how to write a resume, how to write a philosophy, and underneath that is for student teachers and the graduate checklist. So what questions do you all have about this?
I have one. So for me, since I've taken the praxis for both middle school science and for high school earth science. So do I need to take both PLTs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. If you are wanting licensed in both, you need to take both of them.
And these are both done through ETS, right?
Yes.
The test.
Mhm. And really, another reason to maybe do it early in the semester is we don't know what's going to happen. I know that last year they even shut down some of the praxis tests. If you do not like to test from home, I do not like to test from home. I actually like to go to a testing center to do these type of things. It puts my brain in a different place. Last year they shut down all those testing sites. So if you do not want to do it at home, maybe think about doing it a little bit earlier in the semester.
Dr. Hess,
Yes.
I took it over the summer and it was still all, well, I don't know if testing centers are open, but they still had the virtual option, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did you like it, Hannah, on,
Oh yeah,
taking-
I was happy to do it virtual. I was just saying that I think the virtual option is still in place.
Yeah,
Okay.
I do too. I actually think they'll never go back to only in person. I think it's something that's kind of changed forever. Yeah, so if you can, my house is filled with animals and tiny humans and a lot of noisy things that it would never be quite enough for me to concentrate.
Is there anything we should probably review at all before we take these tests, or do you think we should all have like the gut knowledge to pass them right off the bat?
I really have faith that you guys would be able to pass them right off the bat. If nothing else, go through those, your binders, go through the things that you've printed off, go over your studies of learners things, make sure that you know those concepts. Students with exceptionalities, make sure you know some of those acronyms. Yeah, those are the big ones. Think like theory and pedagogy and those type of questions. Hannah, do you have anything else to add that you feel comfortable adding? I think you have to sign something at the end of the test saying you refuse to talk about the test. I don't know if they still do.
Yeah, that is a lot of things. But I would agree with that. I mean, they have the topics available like as a study guide on ETS too. And yeah, just if you look at the official outline they give you, I don't know, there's 4 categories broken down, but studies of learners was definitely a ton of it. There was a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they like theory. Thanks for the advice, Hannah. Okay, well, any questions that you guys have that we have forgotten about? Just like normal, we're going to work through it week by week. At some point, I want to say Tuesday, close to probably Wednesday, I'm going to open up our class site. I always run my courses where I start each week with a video that says, hey, this week, be planning on doing this. And I walk you through that. Typically, I post it the Thursday before the week starts. So if you want to get into a rhythm of watching the crazy video of Dr. Hess, like on a Saturday morning or Sunday night before you start your week, you know what to expect. I will be emailing you guys, just checking in on you, making sure that you're doing okay. So don't get alarmed if I'm seeing how you're doing, because just as important as how you're doing academically is how you're holding it together emotionally with everything going on. If you're an option 6 student, that can be pretty stressful. And if you are not an option 6 student and you're holding down a full-time job while also completing this full-time job, that can be pretty stressful as well. So I will be checking in on you all.
One question for the actual starting of time. Does week 1, is that this week or next week?
Next week, it's August 23rd.
I have a question that might be outside of the scope of this presentation, so I apologize. I can ask another time if it's too much. As far as licensure for Ohio or another state, how would we go about getting licensure for Ohio? Do we have to have a certain number of years of experience first, or no?
It changes. And so it changes, and from every state, it's different. So what you're going to want to do is, if you're interested in teaching Ohio, you want to get on the ODE, the Ohio Department of Ed, and they will have a graph that shows coming into the state of Kentucky with a master's, this is what you need. And quite honestly, I have found it most helpful if you just get on the phone with someone from the state that you're trying to enter, and you can tell them exactly what you have, what type of courses you have, then how easy it is to jump. My initial licensure was in Kentucky, and I jumped from Ohio and Virginia back to Ohio and Kentucky. So it's definitely something that's very common. I know that after I taught 10 years in Virginia, when I came back, Ohio gave me my teaching license, but then they said within 5 years I had to take 2 reading courses. So they might do something funny like that, but each person would be specific. They're actually going to look at your transcripts and what your teaching license is in, and your experience.
Okay, that's fair. Thanks.
I do know it's a relevant point, but I don't know for other states, but I know Ohio has some weird ones in terms of how their licenses work. So like, I know like for me, like I'm like middle and high school earth science and then general science middle school, but I know that Ohio's licenses aren't 1-to-1 like that. They have theirs are called something different.
Yes. So. Yeah, that's a really good point as well. They do split their ages a little bit different. And I do know, just from the word in education field in Southern Ohio, Northern Kentucky, Ohio is one of the more difficult states to come into. It's pretty easy to go out of, but they have a little bit more strict qualifiers before you're licensed. So just contact them and see what it is, because their middle school is different than our middle school and high school, and etc. Okay, my hour is up. I've actually gone over by like a minute and a half. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. Enjoy your last 4 days. Most of you are, I think, busy in your classrooms, getting them ready for an upcoming school year. But if you need me, please holler anytime. Again, if you don't know who your UCE is yet, go ahead and let me know, and I can make sure that I get that to you. And if you haven't sent me your building mentor information yet, option 6 folks, let me know that as well. But besides that, have a great semester, and I'm sure I will be in touch with you. If anybody has any last questions and you want to linger until the end, you totally can. But besides that, enjoy your last week, and I will see you guys next week.